Democratic Congressman from Connecticut, Jim Himes, is here. He is the ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee. General Hertling and Claire McCaskill are still with us. Congressman, your understanding of this bizarre reclassification of those who have lost their lives in the war with Iran, and your sense or your concerns about the reliability of the information we're getting about the war with Iran.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nicole. Look, to your first question, it's very clear what's happening here. There aren't many mysteries associated with what Trump and his people do. They had this idea that casualties going up would further make this war politically unpalatable. It already is, but obviously additional casualties makes it more so. And so they tried a, funky sleight of hand to suggest that that they were lower than they in fact were. And the thing they didn't predict is just how hideous Americans would view this. I don't care how committed you are to the MAGA movement and to the notion that the president is always right. When you see the photo of the 19-year-old young woman who was killed and you think that this White House is using her death or trying to hide her death for political purposes, that is I think most Americans would tell you well beyond the pale. With respect to intelligence, you got it from Sue Gordon right there. There aren't many people as thoughtful and as competent about the intelligence community as Sue Gordon. And she's right. She's right. I mean, two things to say about it. We've lost real talent. The intelligence community is made up of thousands of enormously patriotic, very competent people, but they're people, right? So when a guy like Bill Pulte or Tulsi Gabbard or whoever else makes it very clear what they want, people bend. People have a sense for incentives. And the problem with that, and it hasn't come up, but the problem with that, you and I are both old enough to remember what happens when the intelligence community does what the president wants. You'll remember George Tenet, then director of the CIA, promising George W. Bush that the case for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was, to quote him, a slam dunk. Thousands of dead Americans later and no weapons of mass destruction, and you have a sense for how absolutely essential it is that the intelligence community never be dominated or even influenced by what the desires of the president may be.
Let me read you something General Hertling wrote and ask you if you have any leads that you can share with us publicly. He writes this in the Bulwark. Why did Trump stop the bombing? Quote, after 13 consecutive nights of American bombing of Iran, the 14th night was quiet. That silence has generated almost as much speculation as the strikes themselves. The New York Times reported that Trump ordered the halt out of concern that the U.S. is running dangerously low on missile interceptors. But that concern doesn't preclude other reasons for pausing the strikes. Are nascent diplomatic efforts indicating a path beyond military operations? Did America's regional partners quietly urge restraint? Or did the president's advisors conclude that continued bombing was no longer advancing America's strategic objectives? We may not know the answers for months, perhaps years, but it may be getting through to the administration that the strategy of airstrikes it has pursued against Iran for 5 months isn't advancing political objectives. I guess two questions for you. One, do you know why the bombing stopped after 13 nights? And two, do you have any information about what a lot of reporting suggests is absolutely true, and that is our low stockpiles of munitions?
Yeah. I mean, without being too specific, the pause in the bombing is reflective of the strategic box that the president has gotten himself into and in which there's no clear exit. And in my analysis and opinion, I would tell you that it's driven by three things in order of importance. Number one, the president has a feel for his own numbers and his own politics, right? And he understands that when oil is at $100 a barrel, his numbers are headed south because that means gasoline is $1.50 more than it was 4 months ago for every single of American. And he understands the political toxicity of that. Secondarily, and I'm not sure how much the president thinks about this, but I do assume that behind closed doors, his military advisors are telling him that we are running very, very low of those defensive weapons that we need, that we'd love to send to Ukraine, that we'd absolutely need in the event of a conflict in the Indo-Pacific. And then thirdly, imagine what the rest of the world is saying. Now, I don't know that Donald Trump cares about the rest of the world. I think he probably listens to Saudi Arabia, who are having their cargo ships attacked. But Asia right now is in absolute economic crisis. So I have to believe that there are any number of foreign countries who are saying our economy is about to enter into a depression because of this war. So cool it and make a deal.